I was standing by the champagne table when my mother said it. Loud, clear, like she wanted it to echo across the garden. "She'll never get a ring like this." She held out her left hand, lifting the glinting diamond as if it were some kind of trophy. Guests chuckled politely, uncertain how to react. My sister Alara giggled nervously, trying to wave it off like Mom was joking. But I knew better. Everyone did. I stood there, bottle in hand, smile frozen, pretending to be amused. "Mom," I said softly, trying to redirect her attention. "We're here for Alara, remember?" She turned her gaze toward me, still smiling, and added the part that really stung. "Don't worry, sweetie. Maybe Mira will pick better men than we did." The words hit me like cold water down the back. I laughed, one of those empty automatic laughs people do when they're trying not to cry in public. Then I looked across the garden at my daughter, Mira, playing near the edge of the rose bushes with her pink sneakers kicked off, her hair in messy braids. She caught my eye and waved. I poured champagne into my glass, raising it halfway in a pretend toast to no one, thinking, "Just get through today. This is not about you." But something in Mira's face shifted. She looked curious, thoughtful. She came over to me, tugging gently at the edge of my dress. "Why does Grandma talk to you like that?" Her voice was soft but direct. No sarcasm, just 9 years of pure honesty packed into a single question. I knelt beside her and smiled as calmly as I could. "That's just how she is, baby." Mira frowned. "She's mean." I didn't answer. I just hugged her. Not too tight, just enough to feel something grounding. Then she leaned into my ear and whispered something I wasn't expecting. "Mom, can I give her the letter Grandpa left in his desk?" I pulled back slowly and looked at her face. Serious, not playing. "What letter?" She reached into her little purse, a sparkly one shaped like a cupcake, and pulled out a folded envelope. My father's handwriting hit me like a gust of wind. "To Alara, when the time is right." I felt my chest tighten. I hadn't seen that envelope before. After my father passed 5 years ago, I thought we'd gone through everything. His desk was cleared, his drawers were boxed, his secrets buried. Apparently not. "Mira, where did you find this?" "In Grandpa's desk drawer, the one in the attic, behind that little wooden box with his old pens." "You opened that?" "I was looking for paper to draw." She hesitated. "I didn't read it, just saw her name." I stared at the envelope and then at Mira. "Why today?" "I don't know," she said. "It just felt like now was the time. Can I give it to her?" That moment, right there, was when everything shifted. I looked across the party. Alara was laughing with her fiancé, holding up her hand as another friend admired the ring. Our mother stood beside her, beaming like she'd just won the lottery. Guests sipped from crystal glasses and took selfies under the hanging lanterns. And there I was, kneeling in front of my daughter, holding a letter from a man no longer with us. A man who had always tried to protect us, even when he couldn't stop the damage being done. I didn't know what was inside that letter. I didn't know if it was private or painful or some forgotten sentiment meant only for Alara. But the handwriting was real, the timing, uncanny, the feeling, electric. Mira looked up at me again. "Is it okay?" I looked back down at the envelope. "Yeah," I said. "Yeah, baby, if you want to give it to her, you can." And so she did. Climbed up onto the little white garden chair, raised her voice just enough to quiet the soft background music. "And Alara," she said, "I have something from Grandpa. Mommy said it's okay." And then she held out the letter. Every conversation stopped. Glasses paused mid-air, heads turned. The only sound I could hear was the wind in the leaves and the rush of my own heart. And that's how it began, the moment my daughter unknowingly cracked open a truth that had been sealed for years. In front of everyone. Before the champagne, before the letter, before the silence that swallowed the party whole, I was just trying to survive the day. It was a perfect spring afternoon in my mother's backyard. Blue sky, warm breeze, little lights strung through the trees like tiny fireflies waiting for dusk. The whole garden had been transformed for the occasion. White chairs lined the lawn. Pale pink roses floated in glass bowls. There were hand-lettered signs that read things like, "She said yes," and "Forever starts now." And me? I was mostly trying not to stand out. I'd arrived early to help set things up, not that anyone really noticed. My mother, Rhea, was too busy directing the caterers like a Broadway producer. She wore her pearls and her judgment like armor, floating from table to table with a clipboard in hand and not a hair out of place. At 65, she still managed to be the loudest presence in any room without raising her voice. She gave me a brisk nod when I arrived. "Jessa, good. The champagne flutes are in that box. Don't forget to wipe them. Fingerprints show up in the photos." No hello, no thank you, just orders. That was how she'd always spoken to me, like I was staff. My sister, Alara, on the other hand, got the hugs, the coos, the compliments. "Oh, look at you, sweetheart, that dress, you're glowing." Mom kissed her cheek and held her hands like they were porcelain. "You're going to make such a stunning bride." I watched from behind a tray of mini quiches. That's how it had always been. Alara was the golden child. Brilliant, beautiful, effortlessly adored. I was the one with the emergency C-section, the divorce papers, and the 2011 Honda with a dent in the passenger door. And don't get me wrong, I love my sister, I really do. She's not cruel. She doesn't rub it in. She's just never had to understand what it's like to be second best in your own family. She lives in New York now. PR firm Pilates, a fiancé who builds eco-resorts. She flew in that morning, already camera ready. And I'd spent the previous night getting my daughter's sneakers clean because she wanted them to look nice for Aunt Alara. Mira, my heart, my wild little orbit. She's 9, curious, clever, and far too observant for her own good. She's the one who brings me dandelions from the schoolyard and calls my ex-husband by his first name, not Dad. She's the one who tells me I'm cooler than the moms on YouTube, which I suspect isn't true, but I'll take it. That day, she was wearing a white cotton dress with ladybugs on the sleeves and 2 braids I'd managed to keep in place with about 7 bobby pins. She made a beeline for the lemonade table while I handled champagne. I was trying to play it cool, trying to enjoy the celebration, even though it wasn't mine. Even though I'd never had an engagement party, never worn a dress like Alara's, never had a ring worth posting on Instagram. My wedding had been a courthouse formality, followed by a pizza and a pregnancy test. So no, today wasn't about me. It was about Alara, and I wanted to show up for her even if it meant standing behind the punch bowl while my mom did everything short of handing out medals to the real success story in the family. But being invisible doesn't protect you from impact. When my mother lifted her hand and made her little comment about this ring, the one Dad had supposedly given her, it cut in a way that surprised even me. After all these years, you'd think I'd be immune. I wasn't. I smiled. I poured champagne. I looked at the roses. I reminded myself, this day is not about you. And yet somehow everything still managed to turn in my direction. It didn't happen all at once. It started with Mira walking toward me, sunlight bouncing off her braids, her face thoughtful. She tugged at my dress. "Why does Grandma talk to you like that?" I paused, because how do you explain 30 years of subtle emotional warfare to a 9-year-old with a cupcake purse? "You're not invisible," Mira said. "You're just quiet. That's not the same thing." That's when I knew something in her had shifted, something bold, awake, and then she asked the question that would change the course of that entire day. "Mom, can I give Aunt Alara the letter Grandpa left in his desk?" I stared at the envelope in Mira's hands like it had teeth. It was soft at the edges, the paper a little yellowed, like it had been waiting. My father's handwriting was unmistakable, tight, neat, deliberate. On the front, in bold blue ink, "To Alara, when the time is right." For a moment, the world around us blurred. Laughter, music, clinking glasses, background noise to the sudden pounding in my ears. "Mira," I said carefully, "where did you get this?" She looked up at me like she thought she was in trouble. "From Grandpa's desk, in the attic, behind that drawer with the old stamps." My father's desk. Of course. We hadn't touched it in years, not really. When he passed, my mother packed away most of his things, but his study was kind of off limits. She said it made her too emotional. I believed that for a while, until I realized she used his memory the same way she used her pearls and perfect posture to control the story. I knelt down. "When did you find it?" A couple weeks ago. I didn't open it. I just saw Alara's name. I thought, maybe she was supposed to get it for her wedding. She looked down, then added, Didn't want to make you sad. God, this child. I touched her cheek and shook my head. You didn't make me sad, sweetheart. Not at all. But letters like this, they can be complicated. We don't always know what's inside. She tilted her head. But Grandpa wrote it for her. Isn't it important? I swallowed. Yeah, it might be. I stood up, still holding the envelope in my hand. The paper felt heavier than it should. I didn't want to read it. I wasn't sure I had the right. But I also didn't want to give it away without knowing what I was handing over. Was it personal? Painful? A gift? A warning? A few feet away, my mother was holding court again, retelling the story of how she and Dad got engaged. The version where he proposed on the bow of a sailboat off Catalina, not the actual one where it happened in a greasy booth at a diner while she corrected his grammar. Marcus was always so thoughtful, she said with a performative sigh. He knew I deserved something classic. My fingers curled around the envelope. Deserved. There it was again, that word she used like a weapon. She deserved the ring. She deserved the attention. She deserved a daughter like Alara, graceful, beautiful, always in control. What did I deserve? A champagne stain on my dress? A smile through my teeth while she played queen of the engagement? I turned back to Mira. What made you bring it today? She shrugged, playing with her dress hem. It just felt like it was time. I believe in instincts, especially children's. They haven't learned how to ignore them yet. So I held up the envelope and studied it one last time. If my father meant for Alara to get this, if he really wanted her to know something, then maybe now was the moment. A day when everyone was watching, when masks were on. Maybe he wanted to pull one off. I took a breath. You can give it to her. Really? Yes, I said, if you feel it's right. Mira smiled, then ran toward the small folding chair near the cake table and climbed on top of it like it was a stage. Her little voice cut clean through the party chatter. Aunt Alara, she called out. Conversations dimmed. A few heads turned. I have something from Grandpa. Mommy said it's okay. She held the envelope high like a sacred offering. Alara blinked, startled, but walked over, laughing softly. What's this? Mira handed it over. He wrote it for you. We found it in his desk. I stood frozen. A tightness bloomed in my chest as Alara looked down at the envelope and read the front. I saw her fingers tremble. My mother stepped forward, smiling tightly. Oh, darling, I'm sure it's just one of his old ramblings. He was always writing little notes, you know that. Alara cut her off. It says it's for me, when the time is right. Everyone was watching now. Glasses paused mid-air. A hush fell over the roses and champagne. Alara looked at me. I didn't say anything. I just nodded once. She opened the envelope. Time slowed the second Alara's fingers slipped beneath the envelope's flap. I could see it in her face. This wasn't a novelty. It wasn't one of Dad's usual to-do lists scribbled on the back of a coupon. She knew it, too. Something about the way the paper felt in her hands, the weight of the moment, the eerie stillness that had settled over the party. It all told her this mattered. I stood still, watching from just a few feet away, but it felt like miles. The distance between us wasn't just physical, it was years of misunderstandings, of silence, of trying not to want anything from her because she had already been given everything. And yet, in that moment, with that letter, we were both daughters again. My mother stepped forward like she was ready to intercept. Sweetheart, I'm sure it's nothing important. He used to write things and forget about them all the time. Let's not make a scene. But Alara ignored her. She unfolded the page slowly, carefully, her engagement ring flashing under the garden lights, and began to read. And I watched it happen. Her smile faded first, the kind of smile you wear at family events no matter how awkward things get. It just dropped. Then her brows pulled in, just slightly as she reread a line. Her lips parted. Her chest rose once, sharply, like she'd forgotten to breathe. Ilara? Mom prompted again, tighter this time. Honey, just hand it to me. But Alara kept reading, and I stood there thinking, this is it. The moment I'd been avoiding for most of my life. The moment someone else, not me, would see the truth I'd carried alone. Because I didn't know what the letter said, but I knew my father. I knew he'd never leave something like this behind casually. If he addressed it to Alara specifically, and if he instructed she receive it when the time is right, then he meant for it to surface exactly like this, when she was at her peak, when Mom was glowing from reflected glory, when everything looked perfect on the outside. He knew what was beneath, and part of me, ashamed as it is to admit, felt a flicker of relief, not vengeance, not cruelty, just validation. That maybe I hadn't imagined the subtle exclusion, the rewritten memories, the way my mother minimized me like it was part of her daily routine. But I also felt guilt, because I'd handed my daughter a grenade, and now it had landed in Alara's lap. Mira stood near the dessert table, fingers pressed into her dress, watching all of us like she wasn't sure if she'd done something very brave or very bad. I caught her eyes and gave her a small nod, reassurance she desperately needed. Alara finally looked up. Her face was pale. Her lips were pressed into a line. Her hands trembled slightly, still holding the paper. Then she asked, "Jessa, did you know?" "No," I said honestly. "I didn't even know it existed until Mira found it." She nodded slowly. "Is everything okay?" her fiancé Owen asked, stepping closer. She didn't answer. She just looked at my mother, our mother, and held the letter like it weighed 100 pounds. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" she asked. Rhea blinked. "Tell you what, darling?" "You know what?" Alara said, her voice sharper now. "The letter says, Dad wrote, that the ring you gave me was never meant for me, that it was Grandma's, and it was supposed to go to Jessa, the eldest daughter." The silence that followed wasn't just quiet, it was hollow, like the sound had been sucked out of the garden. Several guests looked at each other. A few took subtle steps back. Owen looked stunned. My mother's mouth opened, then closed. Then she gave the smallest, tightest smile I'd ever seen. "Oh, sweetheart, that old thing, it's just jewelry. Your father had strange ideas about traditions." "No," Alara interrupted. "He said you took it, that you kept it from her." My mother's eyes flicked to me, then back to Alara. "You're going to believe something written in a dusty envelope over your own mother." And for the first time in my life, Alara said, "Maybe I will." My heart stopped. In that moment, I wasn't second. I wasn't silent, I was seen. Not because I fought, not because I exposed anything, but because someone else finally opened her eyes. Alara held the letter in both hands, like it might disintegrate if she let it go. She didn't move. She didn't blink. Her mouth opened slightly, as if there was something more she wanted to say, but the words were trapped somewhere between disbelief and heartbreak. The entire party stood still. Nobody reached for their champagne anymore. Nobody laughed. I could hear the soft chime of wind in the hanging lanterns, the distant hum of the garden lights, and beneath it all, the quiet shattering of a myth that had held our family together for decades. My mother finally spoke. "Well, I think we've all had a bit too much sun," she said lightly, brushing non-existent crumbs from her blouse. "Let's not blow things out of proportion. It's just a ring." "No," Alara said, eyes locked on her. "It's not just a ring, it's a lie." Rhea's smile faltered. "Don't be dramatic." But Alara didn't flinch. "You gave me something that wasn't yours to give. You took it from Jessa." She glanced over at me, and for the first time, I saw something unfamiliar in her eyes. Recognition. Not pity, not confusion, not the practiced sympathy of someone who thinks they understand. This was awareness. Real, painful awareness. "I thought you just didn't want it," Alara said softly to me. "I thought maybe you didn't care about stuff like that it didn't matter to you." I swallowed hard. It did, but I was never going to fight Mom over it. I should have asked. I should have known. "You couldn't have," I said gently. "You trusted her." My mother let out a brittle laugh. "Oh, this is ridiculous. You're really going to ruin your own engagement party over a sentimental note from a man who's been gone 5 years?" Rhea's voice had gone sharp now, defensive. The cracks in her perfect exterior had started to show, and the old chill was creeping into her tone, the one I remembered from teenage arguments and whispered shame. But Alara wasn't backing down. Dad didn't write this casually. He knew. He wanted me to know. She looked at the page again, voice trembling as she read aloud. Your mother never believed Jessa deserved anything of worth. Not love, not recognition, not even the family heirloom your grandmother left for her. If she gives you that ring, know that it was never meant to be yours. I asked her not to, but I fear she won't listen. One day, you'll understand why your sister stayed quiet for so long. A few guests gasped audibly. One woman covered her mouth. Alara folded the letter carefully and placed it on the nearest table, like it was radioactive. The silence returned, but this time it was loaded, charged with realization, shame, and something else. My mother's face was pale now, her composure thinning. She tried to laugh again, but it came out awkward. He was confused at the end. He wasn't himself. You know that. But Alara didn't respond. She just turned toward me, stepped closer, and reached for my hand. I'm sorry, she said, tears forming in her eyes. I didn't know. I hadn't realized I'd been holding my breath until that moment. I squeezed her hand. It's okay. No, she said. It's not, but I'm going to make it right. Then, without warning, she slipped the engagement ring from her finger. The guests collectively gasped again. Alara held it for a moment, looking at it, really looking at it, for what felt like the first time. And then she offered it to me. I don't want this if it was stolen from you. I stepped back, stunned. Alara, no, that's your engagement ring. Owen gave it to you. She nodded. Yes, but the diamond is set in Grandma's ring. Mom had it reset and told me it was a family tradition. It's not, it's theft. My mother rushed forward. Alara, that's enough. You're humiliating yourself. No, Alara said, her voice calm. I think you've done enough of that for all of us. Owen stepped beside her, his expression unreadable. He didn't touch the ring. He didn't say a word, but he stayed beside her, which said enough. And Mira, sweet Mira, walked over to me and took my hand. Did I do something bad? She whispered. I knelt down and pulled her into my arms. No, baby, you told the truth. That's never bad. Then I looked up, at my mother, at the party, at the guests whose smiles had all vanished. Everything had changed, and I hadn't said a single word to make it happen. After the letter, after Alara's voice broke the illusion, after the silence settled over the garden like ash, we left. Not with a dramatic storm out, not with tears or screaming, just quiet. People whispered as we walked past. A few offered sympathetic looks. Most just looked away, unsure whether they were witnessing something sacred or scandalous. I didn't care. Alara stayed behind to talk to Owen and the rest of the guests. She insisted I go ahead with Mira. You don't need to be here for what comes next, she said. I nodded. I didn't need to watch my mother scramble to piece her story back together. I didn't need to see her charm crack and shatter in front of people who used to think she was gracious and elegant and loving. That wasn't my burden anymore. Mira and I walked down the gravel path toward the driveway. She held my hand the whole way. When we got in the car, I just sat there for a moment, staring at the steering wheel, letting it all land. Mira sat in the back, kicking her little white shoes against the seat, watching me through the rearview mirror. Did I mess everything up? I turned around. No, honey, you did something really brave. But Aunt Alara was crying and Grandma looked mad. Yeah, I said softly. Telling the truth sometimes makes people cry, especially when they've been pretending for a long time. She thought about that, then asked, Bad that I'm kind of glad it happened? I smiled. Not bad, just honest. She leaned her head against the window and stared out at the sky. Grandpa wanted her to know. I think he wanted you to be okay, too. My throat tightened. I reached back and held her hand across the center console. I think he did. That night, I got a text from Alara. No emojis, no filler, just, you were right to stay quiet. But I was wrong to never question why you had to. I didn't respond right away. I just read it 3 times and cried for reasons I couldn't explain, even to myself. Because in those 16 words, she didn't just acknowledge the moment, she acknowledged me. The next day, Alara showed up at my house with a brown velvet ring box. "I'm not giving it back to Mom," she said simply. "And I'm not keeping it either. I'm having it reset, with a stone that means something to me, not her. But this?" She held out the box. "This was yours. This is yours." I didn't open it. "I don't want it out of pity," I told her. She shook her head. "It's not pity. It's justice." That word felt strange on my tongue. Justice. Like something from courtrooms or books, not from living rooms and years of keeping your voice small enough to be overlooked. But still, I took the box. Later that night, I opened it when Mira was asleep. Inside was the ring, my grandmother's ring. The one I never got. The one my father had tried, even in death, to give back to me. It didn't fix everything. It didn't erase the past. But it was proof that I hadn't made it all up, that I hadn't imagined the favoritism, the erasure, the tiny wounds my mother delivered with a smile. It was something solid in a life that had often made me feel invisible. And it wasn't even about the ring anymore. It was about the truth and the fact that, for once, it had been spoken without me having to bleed for it. I've talked to Alara more in the last 3 weeks than I have in the last 3 years. We're not best friends. We're not magically healed. But something cracked open that day that I don't think will close again. As for my mother, we haven't spoken since. I don't know if we ever will, but I do know this. I spent most of my life thinking that being the quiet one made me weaker, that enduring silently was some kind of noble act. But it wasn't. It was just survival. And it took my daughter, my brave, wide-eyed little girl, to remind me that truth doesn't need to scream to be heard. Sometimes, component placement, it just needs to stand on a chair and speak. So I didn't get the applause. I didn't get the attention. I didn't get the fairy tale. But I got something better. I got seen. I got heard. And for the first time in my life, I got to leave a family gathering with my head high and the truth on my side. So, yeah, that was the day everything fell apart. And somehow, the day everything finally started to come together. Not because I planned it, not because I stood up and made a scene, but because my daughter saw something wrong and had the heart to do what so many adults couldn't: tell the truth without fear. If this story made you feel something, if it reminded you of your own family, your silence, your strength, or the moment you finally found your voice, then I hope you'll do 3 things. Like the video. It helps more people find stories like this. Share it with someone who might need to hear they're not alone. Comment below. Tell me what part hit you the hardest. I read everything. And of course, subscribe to the channel for more real stories, raw moments, and reminders that sometimes the quietest people carry the deepest truths. Thanks for watching and for listening. You have no idea how much that matters.